are going to talk about in detail. This is the what I'm able to call. I discuss here. Let me show you how it got evoluted from X version to Y version, right? So yeah, we talked about Windows NT. So absolutely, we were on the right track. So NT was the version, NT servers version was a version. So yeah, you are absolutely right. Uh, Gurmeet, like those 95 and 98 were
Hmm.
desktop versions. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah, thanks. So I got, so because those were uh, like they were booted like server only earlier, right? DOS command is coming and it is booting like server, even your desktop also. So yeah, those were actually your desktop, like 95, 98, and so on. Okay. So thanks for correcting me that part. Okay. So the NT server, we started, so version 3.1, kind of 4.0. So it is, until before 2000, it was the series for Windows servers, NT, new technology actually. The naming convention was new technology. And after that, Windows Server 2000 came, right? And after Windows 2000, there's 2003, and R2 came later after that. So, Microsoft might be increased some security features, and same way, Active Directory also got changed version wise. Server version getting changed, your Active Directory features and some sort of security features will be changed according to your server version change, right? And coming to 2008, so then R2 version came, 2012 came, then they started R2. So more security features they introduced. And we talked about more about 16, 19, right? Nano and Docker and cloud friendly and Kubernetes, KAS, right? Kubernetes container as a service. All those sort of things got introduced in 2019 itself. And Docker thing was introduced in your like in 16 actually, right? So yeah, so this is the like legacy and how you are going to differentiate, your all the like feature wise, right? The if you want to differentiate, so like Windows NT Advanced. So first, okay, so this is the actually first version of Windows Server. I never get chance to work on these actually. First version of Windows Server that was 32-bit, right? And supports newer server. Okay, and 3.5 Unix connectivity. Okay, so earlier Microsoft was 80 was not introduced, right? Active Directory. So Microsoft also dependent on Noble. Heard about Noble NetWare. So just for integration of authentication, authorization, and everything, Noble is Noble was also the technology to use that because 80 was not introduced. So Microsoft also using the same third-party solution, might be from IBM or some different player. Okay, and 3.5, 4.0. Okay, so this is the 4.0 is very important. IIS got introduced, right? Microsoft Internet Information Server. So IIS, like hosting of website, that is IIS will be part of our discussion of our Wintel, journey, Wintel engineering. So we should focus on Microsoft Internet Information Services or servers. So it got introduced in 4.0 itself. Terminal server. What do you know about terminal server? What is terminal licensing in in Windows? Are you aware about that?
Not really, but I think it's when you are publishing
Mm-hmm.
one application to multiple people, so you require a terminal license to run number of sessions on that server. I think
Mm-hmm.
so. I'm not too certain of it.
So like in Windows servers, like there's a restriction
Number of users
like
logging in at a time. Number
user.
of
Yeah.
logins.
So
Yeah, only three
right,
users can log in simultaneously on
yes,
a server.
right,
If you
right.
want more
And if you
people, then you have.
I can relate this with the Citrix journey actually, and then you will understand more. So like
Mhm.
in Citrix, there is a Zenith technology, right? Application
Yep.
publishing and stuff on the servers. So whenever you are going to use any capability of Windows Server, you take example of 2K19 or 2016. So
Mhm.
you are allowing 50 users, 40 users on single server. That means you are using terminal licensing or RDCal licensing capabilities. By using the Microsoft this terminal licensing, or in newer version, it is called as a RDCal licensing, right? So you can allow to be used as a multi-sessions on servers, right? Clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so coming to Windows Server 2000, so it started external market language and active server pages. Okay, so in 2000, Active Directory got introduced. So if you remember, we were talking about novel network connectivity and everything. So Active Directory part got introduced 2000, and it was not really mature enough to, so you can you can confident about your Active Directory security and everything. It was actually in starting phase of the Microsoft journey of Active Directory, all those sort of things. In 2003, it is got more more mature enough to manage the big large environment, enterprise environment. So security more security feature got introduced. Server roles, server roles like we talk about FSMO, the Active Directory server roles, right? We already discussed all those things. And the .NET framework got introduced from Windows Server 2003. That's like a legacy discussion, right? So coming to R2, so in R2, so more security, and Microsoft introduced ADFS, right? What is ADFS services, Gurmeet? You want to highlight something here?
Mm, yes, Active
What
Directory
is it?
Federation Services. That means
Uh-huh.
handshake between external parties.
Mm-hmm.
It's you want me to explain about the whole path? I mean, what
No, no,
exactly
no,
is
no, no.
Federation Services?
Just one liner. Just one liner. Yeah, just one liner. Because this is a demo class. We don't want to do the engineering here only. We'll do the
Yeah.
engineering after the demo class. Yeah.
All right. So
Right.
Active Directory Federation Services, it's like a handshake between two parties in which we authorize the other person to other party to communicate to our network
Mm-hmm.
and get authorization from there. So it's like using it's a simple day-to-day example is a single sign-on that we use. So it means I one you part using one party's credential to log into the other party.
Mm-hmm.
So
And multi-factor
that's
authentication. Yeah, right, right.
multi-factor is another example of it.
Okay, so this was like Windows Server 2003, right? So a lot of security changes, and also Active Directory got matured enough, and Microsoft had already released, ADFS services. That was like, a big thing actually for the Microsoft itself. And coming to Windows Server 2008, Hyper-V got introduced. If you that thing we already discussed, right? So
Yeah.
Hyper-V, this virtualization on hardware layer virtualization, storage virtualization, network virtualization got introduced in 2008 server, but that was not that mature enough. So enterprise companies could get confidence about virtualization, and they can compare with VMware. That was not really, that was into initial stage. And event viewer was actually common in the legacy version also 2003. But yes, what Microsoft did, they added more channels. Like earlier, very less channels in the event viewer. What they did,
Okay.
actually they add more, more channels related with Active Directory, related with Windows services, and the server manager actually, if you can recall this, right?
Yeah.
That got introduced in 2000 server, 2008 actually, right? And
Hmm.
that was actually earlier in 2003. Like we have to go to start administrative, administrative option. Then we have to search and do all those, administrative tasks within the Windows servers. But server manager changed the lifestyle of Windows system administrators, right? They can go into the server manager console, and they can play around with the server with their features, services, roles, right?
Yep.
Okay, the next version was R2, so like 32-bit version, and they introduced 64-bit operating system from. It was introduced from 2003 itself, but it was more mature in 2008 R2 actually, right? And GPU was already part of that 2003, but that was not mature enough. A lot of security feature got introduced in 2008 R2, so GPU got matured, and Microsoft increases remote desktop services to just compete with Citrix and VMware Horizon,
Hmm.
VDI and Xanap services, Citrix Xanap and Gen Desktop. and VMware Horizon View actually, just to compete with those competitor. But yes, still Microsoft is struggling in that front to beat those players, VMware and Citrix, right? And the next version was Windows Server 2012. They started some cloud thing, but that was really not mature enough. They started improved Hyper-V functionality, Essential Edition, okay, 2000 R2. Okay, so PowerShell got introduced in 2008 itself, but it was like very less, modules got introduced in PowerShell. But
Mhm.
in 2012, R2 PowerShell was like actually powerful, right? As name reflect, right? PowerShell. So it was really powerful, starting from 2012 R2, and also increase the functionality for iSCSI storage, right? The server storage actually, and also started supporting mobile to manage the mobile devices. And the next, second last version, Windows Server 2016, nanotechnology got introduced. You might heard about that, right? So it
Yes, I
was
was.
pretty fast. So boot time got reduced earlier in until 2012. Boot time was too much. Like it got reduced by fraction, very much fraction of within the nano server, and container got introduced to make cloud friendly actually. So if you can see, cloud journey they started in 2012 itself, but that was not mature enough. It got matured in 2016 itself. They started containers and all those sort of things, right? And the last Windows Server 2019. So Server Manager is there, and new console got introduced like Windows Admin Center, right? So I think we didn't explore that. This is we are going to explore into our Windows Server engineering, the Wintel engineering actually. HCI, Hyperconverged Infrastructure. Are you aware about what is HCI, Gurmeet?
Uh, Not really.
So, like, there are different players actually in the market. Nutanix, you must heard about the Nutanix, and Dell EMC, VxRail, Vblock, Cisco UCS. So, actually, uh, HCI is nothing. It's let me explain you within a minute. One sec. Okay, so HCI is like hyper converged infrastructure, right? So, if you can recall that thing, HCI is nothing, it's kind of data center within a box, right? So you have underlying hardware, okay, and on top of hardware you have uh, hypervisor,
Mhm.
okay, any hypervisor. You take VMware or Citrix or Microsoft Hyper-V, right? And on top of it you have already your virtualized network, virtualization network, and you have virtualization your storage. You can think of vSAN kind of VMware one or sort of thing, and you can create VMs. We can host VMs on top of your hypervisor. So what do you need from the data center? You need power supply. So power supply one as a redundancy power supply, PS power supply two, and you need network connectivity, right? Any MPLS line or leased line, whatever you have in the data center. So this HCI concept is called as a data center within a box, right? So for mid-sized companies, for small scale companies, it is really very helpful to manage their workload. Suppose the workloads of like 3K users, or until up to, you can say, 5K users, and this is really very good for VDI solutions. The VDI, you take example of VMware VDI, Horizon VDI, or Citrix VDI. So these solutions is really very helpful to manage the show if user count is in limit actually. But if it is beyond that, HCI is not going to support it, right? So HCI was not already supported by the Windows servers, but then what Microsoft did actually, they introduced this feature in 2019. We are going to cover it. We are going to also cover it. Hyper-V also, we are focusing on that part, okay? And they introduced advanced threat protection because it is like they cheated this from the Azure cloud itself to make their Windows servers more cloud friendly and more get protected from any threat, outside of the cloud, within the cloud, or on premise. Clear? So far, so good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is the
This
journey.
this HCI will be discussing later in detail, is it?
So yeah, so this will be very limited in the Windows scope because there are a lot of HCI product line available, right? You go for Nutanix, so those Nutanix, VxRail, or Dell EMC, VxRail, vBlock, Cisco ECS, that is not part of this Wintel engineering course. We are going to cover the Windows hyperconverged infrastructure, what is available with the Windows underlying, the operating system. We are going to discuss that thing because those
Oh,
Nutanix and all those things are different sort of that's not part of mental engineering course.
okay. Then I
Okay.
have a question. Why? What's the use of this? I mean, why this HCI is useful?
Yeah, so like earlier, like in until Windows Server 2016, they were not supporting, their operating system itself was not supporting the SCI actually. So how they did actually, they use the Hyper-V capability, they use the Hyper-V capability as a hypervisor, and they made their server as SCI compliant. Earlier it was not. Okay, so for HCI solution, even Microsoft was not into the competition because to be in competition, what they started, they introduced their SCI concept within their servers, so they can compete with the VMware and Cisco and Dell EMC, again part of VMware. Yeah, so just to be in competition in the market, same way as I highlighted, but I've seen this concept will be any customer in the industry is using this HCI concept of Microsoft actually. Okay, so same
Okay.
like another thing. This is not in use actually. So remote
Hmm.
desktop services. So Windows, Microsoft is also providing Zenith and Gen desktop solutions, right? But
Hmm.
they are into the market, but the market share is like only 5% out of 100%. So same way you can compare this SCI thing. So this is not practically in use in the market. Yes, they have their capability, but it's not in use. Okay, on enterprise
But
level.
we
Yeah,
need to understand this concept as well, right? If today is not
yeah.
in use, probably in future, uh, maybe people start coming towards Microsoft
Yeah,
product because
right.
their whole
We'll
environment
be
is
exploring.
Microsoft.
Yeah, we'll be
Yeah, we'll
exploring,
discuss
but
this further
there
in
boundaries.
when
Yeah,
we cover.
boundaries with
Yeah.
Windows only. Yeah, right. So Windows servers. So this is new technology. Okay, we'll be moving fast because we already discussed a lot on those versions and everything, right? So
Mhm.
2000, all those sort of things we already discussed, right? Server 2003 and Windows Server 2000 R2. Okay, 2008. Anything we are missing, so we can discuss this that as well. Cloud OS they started, but that was not mature enough. Hyper-V got introduced in 2008, and Windows servers, okay, R2, 2016, 19. Yeah, so this is a new thing got introduced in 2019. That is Windows Admin Center. Yeah, so we are going to explore this more into our the lab session. And this SCI is also a new concept for Microsoft by using the capabilities of Hyper-V. This is really new thing. And the Windows clustering that is not mentioned here, that will be also covered in our Windows, Windows server engineering part. That is really very important and it is very useful across the board, right? So if you remember, I already told you Linux was got introduced, into their kernel subsystem compared to the Linux core, right? In the Windows
Yeah.
OS as well. So ATP got introduced. It's the capability use Windows Defender. Windows Defender is very old product of the Microsoft, but what they did, they used the capability of Azure Cloud ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, by using Azure Security Center capabilities, and now they made it more powerful in on-premise and in our uh, cloud as well. Server core, same like Nano and the core, without GUI mode, so we call it as a server core, right?
Yeah.
And GUI interface. So yes, same like your server 2016. So if you remember our lab, Active Directory lab, so same way we are using GUI mode, right? Not command line. Okay. So the additions here is like annual channel. Yeah. So let's discuss about this thing. This is really very important as far as the Windows Server 2019 concern. So actually, Microsoft introduced their like same as in desktop version, right? There's a version 1808, 1809, 3, 1909, 1912, same as Windows 10 desktop, right? Microsoft also manage this version for their server version 2019 Gurmeet, right?
Mhm.
So in 2017, so this was like 1709 and finally 1803, 1809, 903, and the latest version is 109. I think 191. So currently I'm working on 1909. So one of the image optimization project I'm working for my client actually. So this is the same version of Windows Server 2009, Server 19, 1909. So I'm very hopeful like Microsoft might be release the latest 1912, but I have to double check that version got released from Microsoft yet or not. Okay. So
Okay.
because they every quarter or 6 months they're releasing their versions, right? 6 months or quarterly. So server cloud is very powerful. So like Windows 2K19, even 16 also supporting in the cloud, and a legacy version as well like 2K12, all those sort of things, and the monitoring part. So Microsoft is also providing the monitoring. You must heard about SCOM, right? Gurmeet, you heard
Yes.
about the SCOM. So SCOM is like powerful tool, and you can monitor your servers and on-prem. But the SCOM is not supporting the cloud, Azure cloud. So they introduced this operation manager through which Microsoft is getting Azure Analytics, Azure monitors. They are using the capability to monitor their Azure cloud workloads. So this is the journey of the Windows servers. So we'll wrap up here. Thanks for joining, Gurmeet. Thanks for joining. Thank you
Thank
so
you, Ratnesh.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.